The Jagat Guru Shankaracharya of Kanchi, Kamakota Pitha, was a multifaceted genius. He was indeed a world teacher. He had devotees from all walks of life, from the downtrodden to the affluent, from Hindus to Muslims, from Asians to Europeans. There were many who found solace from this man who lived in a small thatched hut in Kanchipuram. He was known throughout the world as a great saint, in whose presence everyone found great peace and tranquility. We speak of a time throwing up the man of the age, but often it was not a single man. When people are in need of exemplars of more than one path, time, or was it the timeless spirit, brings forth these men of the age. To quote Sadhu Arunachala, that is, Major A.W. Chadwick, one of the early devotees of Bhagavan from the mid-1930s, the classic examples of the four yogas in modern times are Jnana, Sri Ramana Maharshi; Bhakti, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa; Yoga, Sri Aurobindo of Patanjali; and Karma, Sri Shankaracharya of Kanchipita. His long tenure as Pita Dipathi is considered by many to have been the golden era of the Kanchi Kamakote Pita. He attained Mahasamadhi on 8th of January 1994 at the age of 100. A never-ending stream of people filed past the same dais where they had been having his darshan all these years. The saint's appeal cutting across religion, caste, and creed, and was eloquently attested by numerous Muslims in traditional headgear and several Christian nuns in the 3-mile-long queue. Roads jammed as crowds of people descended on Kanchi. The then Prime Minister of India, P.V. Narasimha Rao, cancelled all his programs to attend the interment ceremony. A shrine was erected on the spot of his samadhi. Not surprisingly, the sage of Kanchi continues to draw hordes of the needy and the faithful to his eternal presence to this day. The Paramacharya and V. Ganesan. In 1940-41, His Holiness the Kanchi Mahaparivaya came to camp in Tiruvannamalai. The reception committee had arranged for a grand traditional reception, which included taking him in a palanquin around the 4 main streets encircling the temple one night. Our family was staying in a house on Big Street at that time. When the procession reached our house, it was past midnight. His Holiness stopped the procession in front of our house and accepted the honor extended to him by my parents. I was only 5 years old at that time and was fast asleep. My parents gathered those who were awake, reached the palanquin, and introduced them to His Holiness. The Mahaparivaya specifically asked for the second son, and my father reported that I, the second son, was adamant on his deep sleep not being disturbed and would not be coming out. His Holiness insisted that I be lifted up and brought to his presence. When I was brought, I am told by my mother, His Holiness intently looked at me with a gracious smile, plucked a jasmine flower from the garland he was wearing on his neck, and flipped it towards me as a sign of blessing. My mother added that the flower came and hit the right side of my chest, which she felt was a great blessing poured on me by His Holiness. All my life I have been totally devoted to Sri Bhagavan and for propagation of his teaching. At the same time, I have moved very closely with staunch devotees of the Paramacharya and have had tremendous admiration for and adoration to him. Since I could not observe Karma Marga, I could not move closely with the sage of Kanchi. Kanakami, an old devotee of Bhagavan Ramana, recalls an unforgettable encounter with the sage of Kanchi. She says, "It was an evening in the year 1958. The Kanchi Acharya was camping in West Mambalam in Madras. When I went to the camp, there was nobody else except a couple of muth workers with the Acharya. It was indeed a rare opportunity for me to have a quiet, leisurely darshan. I bowed before him and stood up with palms joined. The Acharya smiled very graciously and asked me, 'Are you here in Madras these days?' I said, 'Yes.' He made very kind inquiries about my mother and other family members, and then asked, 'Are you not still at Sri Ramana Ashramam in Tiruvannamalai?' I said, 'I am there ever since I moved to that place.' What the Acharya said on hearing my reply thrilled me. He said, 'Oh, you live in solitude.' I was overwhelmed by his apt, kind words that I could hardly articulate the word yes. I just nodded in assent. And then the Acharya said, 'And you listen to Vedanta?' I again nodded. 'And of course you cook your own food.' The three questions of the Acharya, which were more affirmative than interrogative in tone, plunged me in pure joy. I said, 'Please bless me that I may continue like this.' 'Yes, yes,' said the Acharya, giving me a gracious look and moving his right hand up in a benedictory gesture. I was, then as now, living alone in an apartment near Sri Ramana Ashramam. One of the senior devotees, Varunganar, was daily giving me lessons on Sri Bhagavan's Nul Turatu, which is the collected works of Ramana Maharshi in Tamil. I cooked my own food. It was astounding the way the Acharya, in three terse Tamil phrases, not only summed up my daily life, but in a tone which implied his approval of it and blessing for it. So powerful are his look and words, and so overwhelming his compassion. Spiritually advanced friends of Paul Brunton used to request him to advise as to how they could further progress in their sadhana, their spiritual practice. Brunton used to advise them to go to India and have darshan of His Holiness at Kanchi. And to a few of them, he would tell them that they should, after having the darshan of His Holiness, go to Arunachala and stay at Sri Ramana Ashramam, as it would help them spiritually enormously. Some of them have met me and revealed this to me. One such close admirer of Paul Brunton was a young Muslim businessman, A. Haji. He used to live in the United States. Whenever he visited India, he would visit Kanchi without fail and have darshan of His Holiness. Since he was an intellectual, he was drawn to Sri Bhagavan's direct teaching of self-inquiry. At a particular stage, he was in a dilemma of choosing between Ramana Maharshi and His Holiness as his Satguru. He also wanted guidance on the form of meditation he should adopt, though he was doing some form of spiritual practice. He narrated to me, V. Ganesan, the experience he had once in the presence of the Kanchi Shankaracharya. A frail old man sitting in a cramped wooden box, draped in a thin orange cloth and crowned with a wreath of tender green leaves. My first impression of the Shankaracharya. The box is his palanquin, with the carrying poles on two sides detached. He spends much of his time inside this tiny room, no larger than a big refrigerator. Yet he seems quite comfortable in it, sitting cross-legged, gazing out of the open door at his visitors. He even has a bookshelf inside the palanquin. I can only see one eye and a part of his face, steadily looking at me. Not a word is said. In a few minutes, he draws shut the sliding doors of the palanquin. He has effectively retired, even though the palanquin is in full view. I carry my precious foreign friend's letters to the mutt's manager. He is cordial and reassuring. I will read the letters to him at 8. I glance at my watch and it is 7 a.m. I return to the audience chamber. There are about 20 people standing behind the bamboo barricades, gazing at the Shankaracharya, who is peering back at them from his palanquin. A Tamil matron standing in front of me is pleading with the Shankaracharya. I do not understand Tamil, but I pick up a key Sanskrit word. She is pleading for moksha, liberation, from the endless round of birth and death. With hands prayerfully folded, she becomes more and more impassioned, finally breaking into tears. The Shankaracharya gazes at her compassionately, wordlessly, all through her performance, and is moved to raise his right hand in the Abhaya Mudra, the gesture of fear not. The woman leaves apparently reassured. The Shankaracharya talks softly in almost a hoarse whisper, and mostly to his attendants. He asks questions in sign language, punctuated with a few words. The attendant then repeats the question and relays the answer back to the Shankaracharya. I lean against a bamboo pole for support. Many devotees walk by. They bring their problems, victories, and sorrows to the Shankaracharya. He listens intently to his attendant, voicing these messages of humankind. Often he asks questions. He is hard of hearing, and the attendant must shout loudly. A young boy, hardly 12, folds his hands in prayer in front of the Shankaracharya, and at the urging of his mother, rattles off a longish prayer. The Shankaracharya asks a question. On hearing the reply, a smile suddenly appears on the Shankaracharya's face. He seems more than happy. I grow weak in the knees. I cannot stand there any longer. I look at my watch. It's only 7:20 a.m. I go to the back of the crowd and find a seat from where I can see the Shankaracharya. My tiredness refuses to go away. I find that if I lean my head against the wall, I am quite comfortable. I open my eyes. It is already 10 minutes past 8. I have been asleep for almost an hour. I stand up to stretch, silhouetted against the bright sky. The Shankaracharya immediately points a finger at me. Where do you come from? The question is shot at me through the attendant. I come from America, I answer, surprised by this sudden turn of attention. When did you land in India? He asks. I arrived on the 24th of last month, I quickly guess. Then a short silence. Do you have a question for the Shankaracharya? I decide to first seek advice about my meditation, postponing that crucial question I had decided to test him with, namely, who is my guru? As if echoing this, the attendant queries back, who is your guru? Who do you think of in your meditation? I find myself answering, Ramana Maharshi. This is a strange turn of events. I have just answered my own unasked question without the least hesitation, almost as if at some deeper level I already knew the answer. Then my question on meditation is answered. I am advised to discontinue my current practice and concentrate on focusing my love and attention on my guru. The Shankaracharya ends the discussion with a very Indian shaking of his head from side to side, which seems to say, all is understood and will be taken care of. With his right hand raised in blessing, he gently motions me out of the audience chamber